Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of ATA Declassified. After several months since its release, we're ready to discuss the Assassin's Creed Origins experience. We're going to talk about the positive and negative elements of the main game, its post-launch content with its diversified DLCs, and we're going to discuss the franchise, its current narrative direction, and how things might need to change for the future. All that and more on ATA Declassified.
Greetings Assassins, Wayne here and welcome back to ATA Declassified. I am one of your hosts, Wayne, joined by the lovely Marco. How are you doing, sir?
Hello, I'm doing fine. It's been a while, actually. It's been a few months. It's so great to be back.
Oh, it's been way too long and we've kind of deliberately held off on this because this is the full Assassin's Creed Origins experience discussion. We're going to be discussing the full of the main game, the expansions, the post-launch content, the support that Ubisoft have given on the game after launch, and we feel that it was more appropriate to discuss the whole thing as a whole, simply because they have taken this whole new RPG approach to the game, so it's nice to discuss the package overall and discuss whether or not the post-launch content has any effect on the starting game. Could it rechange the experience and that sort of thing? So we held off till it was all done, dusted, kaput, all released before we discussed the overall experience. So to kick things off, Marco, please tell me, what did you think of Origins? I know you've had your say on Access the Animus on the website and the reviews and that sort of thing, but tell me, how did you...
About the main game?
Yes, we'll start off with the main game, right. The starting game.
I would say, as a hardcore fan, I would say it's a great game in terms of gameplay and visuals. The story has its hiccups here and there, and it has some inconsistencies with the established lore. But I have a few issues with the content for hardcore fans. But in general, I'd say it still is a great game to play, and the 250 hours I have put into it are like an example of it keeps drawing me back to play it. Even if I have a lot of issues with some of its story parts. What about you?
I loved it. From the very beginning, like when Ubisoft decided to take this break, I had this idea in my head that it's going to be a soft reboot. It's going to scrap as much of the current story that's in place, which I believe is one of the problems that you have, because obviously things like Juno have kind of been put to one side and done in other platforms. But they were going to do a soft reboot, a brand new main character, which they did. Layla, absolutely awesome. Love the modern day stuff, even though it is very brief. And, work to rebuild this universe and this world from a brand new starting point, with a brand new engine, brand new audience, brand new take on the franchise, because obviously the franchise has been slowly dipping after Unity and Syndicate. So going into Origins, it really was a breath of fresh air. I mean, the RPG elements were great. I think they're a little bit thin compared to what they could have done in terms of RPG mechanics. In terms of the combat was okay, but in terms of the character customization, builds, the outfits, the armor, weapons were great. I loved the weapon system, the upgrading from commons to legendaries to epics. I thought all that was great. The story I really enjoyed. Bayek as a character I really, really related to. I think I myself was connected to Bayek a lot more because I'm a dad, I'm a father, so the idea of losing my son, is heart-wrenching, and I can really sympathize with Bayek with that. the main storyline of introducing, you know, the ancient ones and the evil before the Templars became the Templars was great. But yeah, I mean, as an experience, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the main game. I really like what they did. Like you, I do have a few little problems, a few little nitpicks, but as a first run out of the gate with this new reinvention of the franchise, I think it was a home run, really. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what they do next.
Yeah, I believe that while of course we can analyze Origins as a single product as part of this franchise, I think that seeing how the next chapter will be, it will also give us a new perspective on some of the elements that were laid as a base for the future in Origins. So as a single game, it nails, at least in my opinion, the gameplay, like you said, the character progressions, all the weapons and the crafting stuff. And as for the story, like for the present day, for example, like you mentioned, I have a few nitpicks about Layla, because it didn't feel so super interesting to me for now, because basically she stayed in a cave for the entire game and didn't actually do so much, and she didn't have so many reactions to what happened around her, apart from like 4 files or 5 files in the computer. So but it was kind of like the same for AC1. Like people didn't really like Desmond, and the modern day setting was actually setting up for something that happened in the sequels after that. So I'm kind of hoping that the future chapters are going to justify what happened in Origins for the meta narrative. And as for the story in the past, I loved Bayek as well. Like I am very conflicted in choosing who is my favorite assassin right now, because they did a great job with him, and the voice actor Abubakar Salim did an astounding job with drawing, with conveying his feelings and emotions, and he's really a lovable character, which didn't always happen for other main characters in the past chapters of the game, right?
Yeah, I think that would be the case. Yeah.
And so yeah, I was impressed by Bayek's character and how it was developed throughout the main game, and the Hidden Ones DLC especially with that ending, and the Curse of the Pharaohs as well. As for like you mentioned, the Order of the Ancients, I had some issues as they were very different from how they were portrayed during the marketing campaign. The marketing campaign for Origins showed them as really a dark order working behind the scenes and stuff like that, but I felt like the game didn't show them as an actual group planning stuff and manipulating stuff, but more like a group of single people doing their stuff on their own. So I had some issues with that. So Bayek felt more like he was on his vengeance trail, but it's not like it didn't feel to me like they were actually a global threat or like a threat for Egypt, because for some of them I didn't feel like their influence on the area where they were operating. So I had some issues for that.
Yeah, I see what you mean there, and to be honest, if I had one major complaint with the overall with the main game, it would be like as you say there, and the pacing. I mean, when you look at the targets that you go after. Like the game starts out, you have 4 targets that you kill. You kill them, then you're introduced to Cleopatra, and then you're told about this order of ancients and how there's more of them. The job's not done. At that point in the narrative, I was, as you say, I was hoping they would start to build up this order of ancients as a potential global threat, not just a group of people being a pain in the ass for Egypt. But as the story unfolds as well, by the time we get into the 3rd act, from the moment we get introduced to Julius Caesar, I feel that 3rd act is very rushed.
Yeah, a lot of fans said that.
Yeah, it's all rushed, just jump cutting from one fight to the next. It's rather linear, to say the least. And I don't have a problem with it being linear, but I feel compared to the first 2 acts, being introduced to Bayek and going out on his vengeance run, and then being introduced to this other world of the ancients, this bigger threat, and then clearing that up, and then being introduced to Julius Caesar and that storyline. Julius Caesar is a good guy, and then he's a bad guy, and it was all rushed, that 3rd act. And personally, I would have rather them, at the very least, cut it before Julius Caesar ends, and then have the hidden ones be the 3rd act of the game, where you start building up the order of the hidden ones. Bayek and Aya got screwed over by Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, and now it's time for them to do this on their own and build something new and better to combat this threat. And really, that 3rd act, what there is of that 3rd act is really the hidden ones, whereas the hidden ones expansion, as short as it was, I feel that was just, it felt a bit more tacked on, and compared to, say, Curse of the Pharaohs, which is a massive expansion. I feel the hidden ones expansion was lacking, simply because a lot of that hidden ones narrative, stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent, hide in plain sight, never compromise the brotherhood, the tenets and the ideas and the philosophies and the rules behind the Assassins and the Creed, it was all established very quickly within that 3rd act of the main game. And it threw off the pacing quite a bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that the Creed and its establishment is one of the things that I didn't really like in Origins, and I liked it a bit more in the Hidden Ones DLC. But yeah, the way in which the Creed is established, especially with that. The hidden ones and the Creed, the way in which they are established through that beach scene at the end of the game, and then in the Hidden Ones DLC, it felt strange, because some of the motivations that Bayek and Aya had didn't feel too consistent, in the main game, with the Creed that they were going to build, while the Hidden Ones DLC at least is trying to establish some of the tenets, like staying the blade from the flesh of the innocents, which is a main theme with the main villain of the DLC. So yeah, the Creed is a very, I would say, hot topic, especially considering how the Creed and the Brotherhood should have already existed before Origins. So that's another main, let's say, topic that got me a bit. As a hardcore fan, it kind of shocked me in a way, because I think that like many fans complained about how there were already assassins before the time of Bayek and Aya. And
they kind of established that because Aya gets the hidden blade and gives it to Bayek. So I don't necessarily. I think that the way the game presents it is that there were quote unquote assassins back then, before the time of Bayek and Aya, but then it took Bayek and Aya to rally these people under one banner, under one philosophy, one goal and one idea. I feel that that's what Origins tries to do. And like, as you go into that third act, when they get betrayed by Cleopatra, and they're all around that table and they start discussing, we do this ourselves, and I was like rubbing my hands going, okay, here we go, this is the Origins bit of Assassin's Creed Origins. And then suddenly, next thing I know, there was just a closing montage of one of the people getting their finger cut off, and I was like, that felt rushed. I mean, like, at the very least, they could have messed around with resurrecting the Brotherhood mechanic from Brotherhood, bring people into the Order, and they do touch upon that in the hidden ones, but it's their side quests. It's not a mechanic, which I thought was a bit of a letdown. But yeah, like, I feel funny enough, looking back, the original name for Origins was Assassin's Creed Empire.
It would have been a better fit for me.
Yeah, it would have been a better fit, because there isn't that much origin in Origins. Like, it's there, but it's scattered all over the place. It's very broken up, and it's very hidden, and a lot of it's very brief. And like that jump from the end of the main game to the hidden ones, I feel that there's a chunk there that could have been explored a lot more. The actual establishment of this place, of the bureaus and all this sort of stuff. There's a chunk missing there, which I feel like, as I said, they could have tweaked the story a little bit and then made that a good chunk of that third act the Hidden Ones DLC. Like, the story ends with Aya and Bayek on the beach. We're going to establish this order. The bird skull off Bayek's neck drops on the floor. You get the hint, the assassin logo crest. Bang, end credits. Go into the Hidden Ones, and then you can have Bayek and the people around him going, right, how do we do this? What do we do? Right, we establish the bureau. Where does the ring thing come from? Which I thought, don't get me started on the ring, on the ring finger. Like, how did it become symbolic? It happened to Bayek by accident. It was
indeed. I saw, like, when I was playing, I am a very slow player, and so I had friends asking me, what are you liking about the game? What is that you don't like while you're playing? And I was saying, while I was playing, so I still hadn't had to finish it, and I said the ring finger missing. I don't understand. Like, he just cuts it only by chance, during that assassination sequence. So how does it become symbolic? And then at the end, it's like, unless I missed something, it's more like Bayek is the symbol. So as he has the ring finger cut, then so the other people of the order of the Brotherhood should do the same, which is I don't know. It doesn't feel really symbolic as it was in AC1. Well, in AC1 it was part of a ritual, so it's kind of understandable after 1,000 years that it becomes like that. But it still felt strange to me. And in general, I think that Origins didn't always deliver on the promise of laying the ground for the famous symbols of the assassins, like the hood or the ring finger or the hidden blade. Eagle vision, stuff like that. It was introduced, but I don't think it was always properly introduced. Or more like not having a proper introduction. It was more like it wasn't always memorable as we expected to have in an Origins game.
Yeah,
but I guess.
And like even the symbol itself, the game is very conflicted with where it comes from. I mean, you have the skull. The imprint of the skull, which I feel is more fan service, but then from the very start of the game, the crest, like the symbol, is already on Bayek's Magi shield from the very beginning. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so is this just an evolution of the symbol of the Magi? And if it is, where is the evidence of this symbol being used by the Magi elsewhere? In the world? And there isn't any. It feels like that this symbol just crops up out of nowhere, and
it felt,
and there isn't strange. And then all of a sudden you get to the hidden ones, and you get the hidden one outfit, and all of a sudden you've got the crest on the belt, and it's like, okay, so how did you get to that? Like, how did you, like, what happened? Like, where did they go? Right, that is the symbol. That is our symbol.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like, after the beach scene, it's sort of like implied that they decided that would have been the logo, the insignia of the Brotherhood, and that's why they.
Also, what did they do? Like the skull drops on the floor, and then they see it, and then all of a sudden Bayek and I just look down and go, "Ooh, that looks cool." Like, we'll just have that.
I guess that the gravity of the scene made it so for them. I don't know. I really wouldn't know. But yeah,
at the end of the day, I think it's just. I think it's us hardcore fans having a nitpick at the timelines, isn't it? But as an overall experience, Origins is a good game, and it is a very good game compared to the last two. And I really enjoyed it. The combat system is great. I love the combat system. I love the epic weapons, which add modifiers.
Well. Yeah, I like having photo mode and so many different weapons and outfits. It's the main cause for me playing so much for like 200 and so many hours like that. It's every weapon has its own style, and so the fans that like to have also a unique visual appearance to the main character surely have found a lot to do in Origins, because every new weapon is still different and unique and new, and you can have fun trying to find your build, even if it's not like a proper real build for an RPG game like you mentioned before. It's more like aesthetic most of the time, even though of course the weapons have their own stats, and the hitbox system makes it so that a specific weapon is more useful for a specific enemy rather than others. But yeah, it feels like Origins and the franchise is slowly transitioning into towards the RPG kind of style. So hopefully in the future we can have even more character customization even on the.
Most definitely. If anyone from Ubisoft who works on Assassin's Creed Origins is listening and they are working on the main game, listen to me, listen to Marco, and listen to most of the community on this. The one missing ingredient from Origins to make the combat system, the stats, the builds, the customization, the one missing element to roll all that together to make it probably one of the best packages, character building and combat packages the franchise has ever done. The one missing ingredient is the character customization of Assassin's Creed Origins. Assassin's Creed Unity, I should say.
Yeah.
That is the missing piece of the puzzle, the idea to mix and match and build a character type. Aggressive, stealth, range, that is what, if you're going to take the game down an RPG route for the next game, that is your missing ingredient.
Yeah.
Make a character system like Unity and it will be perfect. That is the one missing piece.
It's
I would love, I would love a system to complement a bow playstyle.
Yeah.
A build that could complement a bow playstyle. A build that could complement using ranged spears and swords or going full on stealth. Like I have praised. Like people have their problems with Unity. I understand that, but the best thing to come out of Unity was that character crafting system.
Yeah.
It was the best thing, and it's not been used again, and it's a shame because it's one of the most interesting mechanics that was introduced to the franchise since naval combat in AC4, and it needs to be resurrected and retooled for the next game.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can go into the next game, whether it be set in ancient Greece or ancient Rome or feudal Japan or wherever we're taking it, if I can have the option to mix and match the character, whether it be Bayek or someone else, to build a range archetype, please give me Unity's crafting system. It was so good.
Yeah, it was super nice to tinker with all the settings, with all the pieces of the equipment. I really hope
the stats and the modifiers.
To have it again in the future. And yet it still is a great system. Like the fighting system is already top notch. I think that it was upgraded and like redone, not upgraded, but redone from scratch with the hitbox system. And I think that it led, at least in my case, it led me in some very tense fights, especially with the bosses. And which is something that I hadn't felt in the franchise for quite some time. So I would say that in terms of experience and in terms of conveyed feelings through the gameplay and the game world and the lighting and the art, I think that Origins nailed it perfectly, at least in my opinion, because the fighting system gave me some really tense moments, while the tombs really nailed the idea of discovery and the mystery, and you going into this very old place and finding out all the treasures and getting out of it. And the main landmarks are extraordinary to look at. So. And also, I would say that having such a diversified world in terms of environment, it allowed the artists to really play with the lighting system, and having so many different color palettes in the various environments, which are something completely new, I would say, for Origins. It's just so beautiful to just wandering in it. This is the main focus of the game, or at least the main element that the game did really right, and I hope they just build upon that in the future.
Yeah, I absolutely adore the world, and you can see the 4 distinct environment types as you go through. You have the main desert, sections at the bottom of the map, and then you have Siwa and the rocky areas and the mountain passes, and then you have Alexandria, which is the heavy Greek and Roman influence, other cultural influences on ancient Egypt, and then you have Memphis, which is and Giza and the Giza Plateau, which are a lot more traditional Egyptian culture and Egyptian architecture. And it's like, as you move from one zone to the next, I mean, like, if just from simply going from Alexandria to Memphis, if you go there by foot, you slowly see that transition in the architecture, and it's beautiful. And again, the color palettes are great. Alexandria feels very warm and colorful and vibrant, whereas but at the time of where the game's set, you know, when the royal lines are slowly dying, you know, Egypt, that like the culture of Egypt is slowly being consumed and it's being altered in harsh ways, and a lot of that ancient mystique and that ancient culture is slowly being lost. Like, as you go into Memphis, you can see it's quite dark, and there's a nice little cloud cover over the map, which I really love, and it definitely gives this juxtaposition of like, yeah, compared to Alexandria, Memphis is dying. You know, it's not what it once was, and it's definitely changing and evolving for the better or worse. You know, history tells, but even if the dark and dreary nature of Memphis, it's a beautiful place to walk around. And much like Unity, I just found myself walking the streets, just observing, watching what characters do. You know, like, you get some beautiful things, like you'll get like NPCs carrying a brick, like a pyramid brick of limestone, and I just watched them for ages, just dragging this along and watching the animations and all. And there's a lot of detail and the heart that went into designing the world. And the Assassin's Creed Origins experience, you know, the guided tours really complements that. And the guided tours was a fantastic idea. I wasn't too sure when I first heard about it. I was like, oh, okay, how are they going to implement this? But the tours themselves, like, that post-launch content is phenomenal. And if they can make that for every game, it would be brilliant. I mean, like, every future game, my fool's dream is if they went back and did every other game beforehand.
A lot of fans have been asking for, like, having the Discovery Tour for past games, or at least for Unity and Syndicate. And the same went for photo mode. Like, it was like the fans have been asking to, like, Origins was so, let's say, groundbreaking for the franchise in so many ways that fans, it was so surprising for me to see fans going back, like saying, these new features, I would love to see them in the past games, because that would create some very interesting scenarios or pictures or learning opportunities in the case of the Discovery Tour. So and going back to the Discovery Tour, I think that it's a great addition as well. Like, it's how can I put it? It's something that it's really consistent with the idea of the Assassin's Creed brand in terms of, you know, history being a playground, as they always say, and being it can also be used as a standalone product for educational purposes. So I think that, like, I really hope it can be done in the future as well, especially considering that after the lessons learned through the development of Origins, it should be easier to do that for future games.
I feel now that the Ubisoft, for better or worse, that they've set themselves a precedent. The fact that with every game now, you know, the fans will expect a photo mode and the experience, you know, that they will hope to expect it now. Yeah, and I would love it if they did it, but the Ubisoft do not have to do it. But I mean, because the tool set is so good, the photo mode set, the tool set is so good, and if you use it right, you can actually really delve deep into how the game was designed. I mean, like if you take a picture of fire and like you mess around in the control, like in the camera mode, you can see how it was made and how really it's a flat image which is locked to the camera position, and you can see how the game is built from that perspective. All those sort of little details which are really nice, and that photo mode allows probably to be the next logical step from photo mode would be a video mode, which I think would be a bit too much. But I mean, like if there could be an option for a video mode where you could record a clip and then have a photo mode camera, so you can actually create and replicate those shots which you see in the trailers, you know, the gameplay trailers. That would be great, and I think that would allow a lot of creativity for the community to go back and making videos. You know, no longer will you know, video creators you know, such as Assassin's Creed Universe who doesn't make videos anymore, but like those kinds of content creators don't have to go back and keep reusing the same footage from the video game, like the same cutscenes or the same clips from the trailers. They can make their own. You can make your own footage and make your own fight scenes, and you know, and upload them. And I think that would be something cool to that they could play around with in the future. But if with the next game, if they do the photo mode and another discovery tour, that'll be great. Wherever we go.
Yeah, because like every kind of historical setting that has been chosen, usually it's being chosen because it has a very specific meaning in terms of history, but also for the brand. So usually the settings that have been chosen are very rich of history. So the Discovery Tour is really a welcome addition, and I really hope it becomes like a standard for the franchise from now on. Because it really adds to the experience. Even though I have this tiny nitpick in saying that the Discovery Tour is a great product as in itself, but I didn't like too much having the classic database removed from the main game. So when you are exploring a historical place while you are playing and seeing it for the first time, you are not having a historical support right there in that moment. So it's the only nitpick I have, like removing the database as we had in the past games. Even though this new kind of database is amazing because you are walking in the database. It's not like just reading text. You are walking through history in a way, like in a recreated version of history. But it felt initially, at least, it felt that the experience of the main game didn't have that slight historical touch while you're exploring the game. But it's the only nitpick I have about the Discovery Tour, because otherwise it's a really great product in so many ways.
Yeah, most definitely. Moving on to other post-launch content, which they have to do in the next game as well, is Nightmare mode.
Oh, Nightmare, like the difficulty setting, you mean?
Yeah, the difficulty setting, because one staple of an RPG game especially when you release post-launch content, whether it be expansions or small additions such as a difficulty setting, one of the main attributes is that they have an effect of the main game. There isn't all that much of that in Origins. I mean, like, for example, that there aren't mechanics that are introduced in Curse of the Pharaohs that can be used in the main game. There's a few extra skills which were introduced, but no real, brand new in-depth mechanics. But Nightmare Mode really changes the game, and like right now, I'm currently playing through or replaying Origins on Nightmare Mode with starting gear only. So the starting sword and the starting shield. I can switch out my bows, but I'm not getting the double. I can't use the double bow ability.
Okay.
I can't buy any new weapons. I can't use any new swords or shields that drop. The only way I can keep on using swords and shields is if I upgrade the starting sword and the starting shield. And I'm playing that through Nightmare Mode. So
that's harsh.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I feel like as an RPG gamer. Like that's what I feel. That's what a challenge should be in an RPG game. Yeah. Like you can do them in Final Fantasy. Your own personal customized modifiers. How are you going to play this game? What restrictions are you going to put against yourself? And that's what I'm currently doing with Nightmare, and it is very, very hard. And it's got the enemy scaling on there as well. So
wow.
it is tough, and I can't go head on into a fight ever. I have to be really, really careful, but it feels a lot more Assassin's Creed-y. It feels I feel a lot more assassin-y. It's like, right, okay, I am taking my time here. I'm only at a one arrow easy to do enemy camp, but I have to take my time. And I like that, and I love the Nightmare Mode in that edition, and that's what I'm currently playing the main game through, and it's a lot of fun with the Hidden Ones outfit, which I had to cheat a little bit just so I can get the Hidden Ones outfit and then go back, because the Hidden One outfit, the Hidden One outfit from the expansion and the Aguilar outfit are probably the two best outfits in the game, in my opinion. Excluding Bayek's starting default outfit, which I also love, but the Hidden One outfit is really nice.
Yeah, I think that the Hidden One outfit was the one that everyone in the community, especially the hardcore fans, but in general the community loved that, because it really felt like the next step into the assassin-y things. Like after Origins, seeing a proper assassin outfit, white and red, with a proper hood and stuff like that, it really helped, I think, the fans getting closer to the idea of the Brotherhood being built.
Yeah,
and it makes sense even in the environment, I think.
One minor thing though about the Hidden One outfit: is it just me, or is the sash, like the front sash and the red and the back sash, the red sash, is it me, or is that modeled a little bit off? It appears to have a twist in it, and it looks weird. I don't. It feels like it doesn't feel. It feels like it's a locked character model that's got a weird twist in it. It was my brain when I first saw it. I was like, what is up with that sash? It doesn't float as much as Bayek's normal sash and normal outfit.
For what I've heard, or for what I remember back in, when was it, January, when the Hidden Ones DLC was released, some fans complained about the entire robes not waving too much,
oh, did they?
Feeling a bit rigid while Bayek was moving. But I mean, it for me personally, it didn't feel too much. I didn't notice it that much, because it feels more like a proper but also heavier kind of outfit. So it's not that bad for me if it doesn't flow too much with the wind. It feels more like assassin-y gear that you are using for your missions, for like proper gear in a way. Like it's my head canon, because after all it's just an outfit that is just aesthetic, but still.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Like I like the rigid nature of the outfit. It was just it's just that the modeling of that red sash just looks a little bit off. Like I don't know if it's it might just be me. If it is just me, sorry, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. But the sash itself, the model of the red sash itself, just it looks like it's got like a weird twist in it, which just looks to my eye just looks a little bit off. It might just be me, but overall, like the hidden one outfit, I love the fur. I love the gold plating. Another symbol, which like we were discussing earlier, another symbol, the ring finger and the crest, like another symbol, the beak on the hood. Where did that come from? Like that's another one.
It was meant to be explained to a degree. Well, the beak itself is more like a visual choice that wasn't really explained story-wise. Yeah, but also the hood in itself wasn't really explained. Like I'm not sure if the final scene of Caesar's assassination, when Aya uses that sort of like hood, like that sort of, what's it called, toga as a hood. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's the moment where the assassins or hidden ones decide to use the hood. Or I don't remember if it's mentioned in the final scene anyway, but it's one of the other elements that I don't think were super properly introduced as it was promised during the campaign. Yeah, but I guess it's okay.
It's just again one of those minor nitpicks. Bayek has a hood throughout, and there's so that's already like established. But how and why did they go for that little beak at the end? Like, where did that little bit come? Explain its origins. Explain to me. But regardless of like a minor question, a minor curiosity, like the Hidden Ones expansion, I thought was a little bit short. I don't mind that, but when I first played it, I was like, okay, that was short and sweet. Don't mind that. But my expectations have been dropped a little bit for Curse of the Pharaohs. But boy, oh boy, have I never been happy to be proven wrong ever with this franchise. And the the Hidden Ones compared to Curse of the Pharaohs is a joke. Like the Hidden Ones feels like a side quest that was ripped from the main game compared to what Curse of the Pharaohs is, because Curse of the Pharaohs is monstrous. It is huge. Where basically you're getting six maps. You got one big new map, and then four or five maps.
It's four.
Sorry, spoilers.
4 afterlives and the main map, but the main map is huge, and it has different environments. Like it has the main city of Thebes, but it also have the landmark of the Temple of Hatshepsut, but it also have the Valley of Kings, which is a completely different environment. So Curse of the Pharaohs is I have again some nitpicks about it, especially about the ending, and it's Bayek doesn't really behave as I expected him to behave after the whole story of Origins and the Hidden Ones. But apart from that, and I've complained about that on Twitter, but but apart from that, I still believe that the Curse of the Pharaohs is the best DLC in the entire franchise, I would say, because of the diversity of the environments. The visual aspects of the DLC are really nice, and there is some content for hardcore fans as well. Like one of the things I loved the most about the DLC is something that it's the backstory of how the apple was it was transferred from one historical character to another, like from one pharaoh to another, and that's really enticing, because it's something that we have seen in the early games, I would say, like seeing pieces of Eden going from a historical character to another ones, like we saw in the glyphs, for example, or in the clusters in Brotherhood. But it's something that we don't usually see across history, because usually we see in the main games we see a specific historical character that might have interacted with a single piece of Eden. But this in Curse of the Pharaohs we see a bit of a history of a piece of Eden moving from hand to hand. Yeah, and it was really consistent with the story of the DLC, and that felt like it to me felt like going back to some of the original elements that got me so interested in the franchise, and that's something that the Curse of the Pharaohs DLC does really right for me. Apart from the ending, I'm really. Like it's like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. Like it does almost everything right for me, apart from the ending.
Well, let me ask you this though, then. Yeah. Like with the ending, and like the way Curse of the Pharaohs builds it up is like you've got two conflicting points of view of what the curse is. You've got the people thinking, oh, it's because people are robbing the Valley of the Kings, whereas Bayek as stands by this idea, okay, that it's a piece of Eden manipulating everything. Yeah. Do you think they used the wrong piece of Eden?
I would say, like in general, I think that the apples have been used too much, but in this specific case I think it's the right piece of Eden, because it's like the apple since the beginning, it's been a piece of Eden that causes illusions among other things. So I don't think we've ever seen such a huge scale kind of illusion, like creating entire afterlives. And but we have seen characters created by the apple that interact with people and kill them. So like it happened, for example, in Revelations, when Altair uses the apple. The old Altair uses the apple to create fake assassins to attack enemies. So I don't. Like I can believe it's believable that that an apple is used to create illusions of pharaohs killing actual people in the real world. Even though like the entire idea of having the afterlives, which is not completely explained how like I believe it is an illusion, because basically the entire DLC pushes you to believe that. Even Bayek, at a certain point, he says those are like dreams, or those are fake. And there's a part at the end where Bayek hits an Anubis guard, and it appears to be an actual normal guard. So that's another proof towards it being an illusion. But we've never seen such a big scale illusions, like creating 4 afterlives environment. But yeah, I think it's the right the right piece of Eden for that. You don't think so?
I would have completely agreed with you until maybe about 3 days ago. Because recently I went and picked up Rogue Remastered.
Okay.
Which is probably a topic for another day in terms of like what it's like. However, in that it is mentioned that the Ankh can resurrect the dead. In the modern day, in the modern day section, it was mentioned that the Ankh could resurrect the dead.
It didn't mention like that. Like the modern day section mentioned that they believed it was like that, but at the end of that dialogue, is it the Otzoberg and Violet da Costa dialogue?
Yeah, and it says the Ankh could resurrect the dead. It says it. I mean, you can twist it and bend it, but at the end of the day, that like they hinted that the Ankh could resurrect the dead. And I thought and I completely forgot about it. Like when I first played Rogue, back after Unity, I reviewed that game, and to be honest, it was just a little side note that I completely forgot until replaying it recently, and it said that, and I was like, oh my god, why didn't they do the Ankh in Curse of the Pharaohs? Or at least do the Ankh with in combo with the Piece of Eden. So you got the duats, which are the big massive open world illusions, while at the same time the Ankh is actually really resurrecting these pharaohs. And I thought about it, and I thought that could be an interesting conflict in terms of what Bayek thinks. I mean, Bayek thinks it's all an illusion. He's only ever interacted with the apples of Eden. He knows roughly what the apples can do, but his view of what the apples are and what they can do, he's never seen the sword. He's never seen the staff. He's never seen these other pieces of Eden, which can jar and change your opinion. So when it's now looking back, I thought, they could have thrown the Ankh in there just a little bit,
Yeah, for sure. That's the idea of having the Ankh in the game is something that the fans have been mentioning at least since a few months after before release of the main game. Everyone was expecting it to appear, even if in a different way from how it was depicted in Rogue and before that, because it had been mentioned a few times in the AC lore before that. Some fans were expecting, when they didn't see that in Origins, they said that the Curse of the Pharaohs DLC would have been the perfect place to have the Ankh, even if it didn't really resurrect the dead, but created illusions or something like that. It would have been more consistent with the environment, I guess, or with the mythology, with the religious mythology of Egypt. But I guess
it's I completely forgot what the Ankh did as an ability. And I knew that there was always discussion about the Ankh being in Origins at some point. There was always is it going to be there? But I completely forgot what its ability was, its main power, until I replayed Rogue and it said, it resurrects the dead, and I was like,
why?
Damn! Insert 4-letter word here, 4-letter profanity is what? Why didn't they have a stab at that and have a play around with another piece of Eden? Which again, to slightly move topic, I feel that using the piece of Eden in Curse of the Pharaohs, using the Apple of Eden again, is a little example of the problem with the franchise. Yeah. Which at this point, which is they don't know really what to do. They have a rough idea, roughly, but scrapping the Juno storyline, always using a piece of Eden, an apple of Eden, trying to do a soft reboot with Origins,
Yeah.
You can play around with your tool set a lot more. You did it with Unity with the Sword of Eden. You did it in Syndicate with the Shroud. You did it with Origins in the main game with the Apple. as we get into Curse of the Pharaohs, come on, have a play with the lore with what you've created. You've already created the Ankh. You've teased it throughout several games. Yeah. You're setting in Egypt. I mean, 2 + 2 = 4. Why not just do it? You know, you know.
I understand what you mean. Yes, the idea of something that I felt recently with Origins and with the ending of the Curse of the Pharaohs is this sort of like trend. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's this sort of trend of leaving open storylines opened to interpretation, and having these sort of like having the same kind of piece of Eden and not knowing where it ends, and it feels like the storylines are more and more made as how can I say, single products, self-contained, and sometimes they feel less part of an overarching narrative.
It's called the Star Trek theory.
Is it?
Yeah, like it's a term. It's something that was traditionally used in television. But bear with me while I get my media student hat on. In the original Star Trek series, so going back to the originals, the Next Generation with Jean-Luc Picard and even Voyager to a degree, like Star Trek: The Next Generation, it was written in a way where even though there were 20-episode seasons, you could watch any given episode on any given day and it would tell a single cohesive story. Yeah. It would start and end at the exact same point. There wouldn't be an underlining narrative throughout the season. Jump to modern day Star Trek Discovery, and other mainstream TV shows, especially full Netflix series, where you have individual standalone episodes with their own small narratives, but there is an underlining thread that passes through the entire season.
Yeah.
That is what Assassin's Creed, what Assassin's Creed is having a problem with. In the original, back in the day with Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, Brotherhood, Revelations, it was an underlining narrative. It was an arc that went through one game to the next.
Exactly.
Whereas now Ubisoft find themselves in the classic standalone Star Trek episode mindset, where each game has to start and end pretty much at the exact same point. You know, it's a self-contained game and there's no real underlining narrative. There's no real thread that crosses from one game to the next. One clear, like, actually tells you from a storyline standpoint. The underlining thread is very, very subtly hidden within the game, and that thread is only something the hardcore fans can really dig out. And I personally believe that's the wrong approach. At the end of the day, gamers, Assassin's Creed fans, whether it be the hardcore or the casuals, they're not dumb. They know, they have an idea of what the Assassin's Creed franchise is. They have an idea of the overall main storyline. They can elevate a pitch that, you know, in ancient times, there was an advanced civilization. They made man in their image. There was a catastrophe. They all got wiped out. And then now, several thousand years later, there's two organizations, the Assassins and the Templars, who are fighting it out for the free will of humanity. I mean, it's relatively simple. Don't think, like, Ubisoft shouldn't think that their fans or just the players overall are not clever.
Yeah.
They can keep up with a game that you can play as you've done so for 250 hours. They can keep up with that narrative easily. Wait a year, wait 2 years, then the next game comes out and they know exactly where they are in the narrative and where they're going. Ubisoft have done it before with the previous games, 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3. That 5-game arc with Desmond, we kept through it. Yeah. We loved it. We liked it. Fair enough, there was hit and misses, but that is the high-end complex storytelling which gamers in general are expecting from games these days.
Yeah.
You know,
especially from franchises.
Yeah, especially from franchises which are so high concept as Assassin's Creed. I mean, it's like I've explained Assassin's Creed to friends who have never played it before, and they find it interesting because the franchise dips its toe into so many different elements. It dips its toe into history. It dips its toe into advanced technologies. You know, the idea of the Animus. Yeah. It dips its toe into ancient mythology, you know, advanced civilizations that came to Earth. And it even dips its toe into biblical references, Adam and Eve. Assassin's Creed is one of those franchises which expands so many different topics across media and education and history. And a lot of the time, when you play things like Rogue, Unity, Syndicate, even Origins now, it's like that they're trying to course correct because they've created a beast and they don't know where to take it. It's why Juno has kind of been dropped and thrown into the comics, because as a cliffhanger, what a great idea. Juno has been hidden in the internet. She's been released, and now she's looking for a body to get into and take over. That's a great idea narrative wise, but from a gameplay perspective, how do you make that into a game? How do you make Juno stealing a body made by Abstergo into a game? Me personally, if they would have kept the Juno storyline going in Origins, I would have scrapped the gods and have them as Juno, like the original builds suggested.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You know, you are in the Animus. You are as Layla. You are in the Animus, trying to dig up information on Bayek and where this piece of Eden is. Juno is in your Animus as well, within the net, within the NMI network, and she's trying to stop you. Yeah. You know, and she's throwing challenges at you, which you have to overcome, while at the same time trying to solve the mystery of Bayek and the Piece of Eden and the origins of the assassins. I feel that would have been a lot more interesting if you kept Juno,
and it would have taken place in the game world without having dedicated environments.
Yeah, like Juno works better as a celestial. I don't know if even that's the right word. A celestial enemy which doesn't have a physical form. Her threat is in the Animus. She is a threat within the Animus, narratively wise, and you know that makes a great antagonist, because in the modern day you have the antagonist of the real Templars coming to hunt you down. In the Animus, which is, well, it's a simulation, it's not real. You have a real threat of Juno messing about with you.
That would have been nice. It's basically what should have, what kind of happened in Syndicate in a way, but very briefly. And well, yeah, it's very sad from a fan point of view, seeing that such a thread that took place since 2012. Has been moved to the comics. I mean, I don't even know if there's a lot to say about it, because it's been discussed so much time. It's a topic that has been explored so much by everyone. But yeah, it felt like being invested in a plot line that was started in the games and ended up in the comics in a very strange way. Then, of course, the events that happen in the comics are very interesting, because it's still a modern day kind of thread, and it's of course it's about Juno, so the hardcore fans liked, for example, the new issue of the comic book series Uprising. But still, even seeing that, it feels like a very missed opportunity from the fans' perspective, not to have her in the games and in Origins, even in a brief mention, because like the Juno events were called like that up until at least the builds at E3 and Gamescom last year. So it was sort of last minute, I guess, like a last minute change, I guess.
But based on on the turnaround time of the Juno events leaving and then the launch date, like you can tell it was kind of at the last minute. But they already had. I reckon at some point they already had the idea of the gods kicking around somewhere, because
for sure.
I'm guessing that they would have turned up at some point, but I don't know. I mean, I feel so. It does neglect a small portion of the hardcore player base. Like myself, I consider myself a hardcore Assassin's Creed fan. However, I don't, unlike lore masters like yourself, I don't know every intricate detail of the lore down to the exact time and date. I mean, I absorb the worlds, I absorb the characters, I absorb it from a narrative perspective, and I love the books. I myself enjoy the film, and I will, and I can give several examples why it's actually an alright flick. But I myself am not one that will race to my local comic book shop, which will be Forbidden Planet in Manchester, to grab the next issue of the comic book because I need to know what Juno's doing. Unfortunately, I myself, just because of time, I am not that quote unquote hardcore. And I'm guessing, and no doubt that there are others like me who are still hardcore, but not hardcore. Like who were invested in, like I was invested in this Juno storyline, and now that's kind of gone wayside to the comics. And to be honest, I don't know whether or not I have the heart to chase it up in the comics, because it's like, well, okay, like you put it on a different medium. I fully understand why you've changed the platform, mainly from a narrative perspective, because it would be difficult to tell a decent Juno story within a video game. But you should have kind of thought all this through, at the end of the day. I mean,
especially because it's been a narrative plotline that was developed for like 5 years. Yeah, 5 years of releases, so it's even more than that, I guess. Yeah,
you should have had at least an idea of where you were going to take this narrative from a design and gameplay perspective. And to be honest, it sounds like you did. I am willing to wager, like what I just said previously, like what they could have done, like with Juno being in the Animus. I reckon that's what the original idea for Origins was with the Juno event.
I guess. So. I mean,
they're
still explained as Animus glitches. So
but somewhere in there, Ubisoft just went, okay, well, we need a storyline for the comics, which they they've done a couple of times where they've kind of taken bits and threads that have been dropped in the main games, and then they've kind of taken them and then ran with them more in the comics, and I don't mind that, but like, don't be throwing these threads, these interesting plot elements, which are like, oh, this could get interesting, and then just say, we'll just get comic books, go over there, and it feels like as a hardcore fan, I don't want to be led around, if that makes sense.
I got what you mean, yeah.
I myself, and like I'm sure that there's other fans out there which feel like they don't want to be led around to 1,000,002 different platforms to keep up to date on the story. Okay, we've dropped this in the games. If you want to know what happens, go read it in the comics. It's like, well, yeah, but like now you tell me I have to go read a comic to keep up with that with that stuff. What if it comes back into the main game? Assassin's Creed Origins is a great example of this, in the sense of the Assassin's Creed movie references on the computer. You get the images of the grand of the Templar Grand Hall at the end of the movie. You get Rickens or Rykins, whichever way you want to pronounce it.
Don't open a wound again. Like that.
Well, you get his autopsy report, and like if you haven't seen the movie, you will have no idea what that means. Well, you will have an idea what it means because it's an autopsy report, but you won't understand the significance of what that means.
Of course.
And how that outright confirms, after several people debating and wondering, like, yes, it outright confirms that the AC movie is canon and in the lore. Whether or not certain plot elements are correct or not, like, it don't matter. But like key pivotal narrative plot points, such as Callum Lynch, his Rickens/Riken's death, Sophia, the creation of the Animus Arm, which the design was stolen from Layla, which I thought was a great idea.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was a great idea, explaining like why hasn't the arm been in the games before if it is in lore, and it's like, well yeah, Layla designed it. She was designing it, and Sophia nicked it, and it was like, great idea, fantastic. But if you've not seen the movie, you won't understand the significance of that stuff. That stuff that is presented in Origins, of
course. That's but that's what I felt with Origins as a main game. The content for the hardcore fans was compartmentalized. Like, it was placed in specific places that the casual fans could completely avoid. Like, this content that you mentioned about the movie was placed in the PC. You can avoid completely the PC. And for example, the issue sites in the main game, they, like, apart from the first one, which you go through with the main story, so it's introduced in the main story, but other than that, it's not. It doesn't feel like a relevant thread anymore. Like, it seems to be side stuff, while for the hardcore fans it's super meaningful. And I think that Origins introduced this kind of approach, like, more than introduced, like, focused on this kind of approach of having the content for hardcore fans as kind of like side stuff, and or not main stuff anymore. And at least this is the idea that I got. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's something that other people mentioned on social media, and it feels like as Jean Gadon mentioned in his very recent panel at GDC. It feels like Ubisoft is not they are listening to the main audience, to the broader audience, and not just the hardcore fans, as he put it. And so as of now, it seems like the main, like the hardcore fans that invested more and more time for 10 years of franchise and story, they are I wouldn't say put aside, but the best that the creative team seems to be doing right now is trying to respect, quote unquote, respect the hardcore fans, but not drawing the story towards threads for the hardcore fans. And I understand that from a business perspective, that's understandable, because you have a much broader audience that may not care about stuff from the past games, but at the same time putting considering, like, putting aside threads like the issue stuff, because that might be a narrative barrier, as it was mentioned, for newcomers. It felt strange because the same kind of content was important and relevant in the past games. So why wasn't it a narrative barrier back then?
Yeah, I mean, like as I've said before, you know, Ubisoft it shouldn't treat their fan base, whether it be the hardcore or the casuals, as idiots. Like they can keep up with the narrative, and you know, it's that whole you know, layers of an onion thing. You know, it's like you know, the best way to keep a deep lore-driven franchise going is keeping that lore fresh, relevant, and prominent in the main narrative, but doing it and writing it and presenting it in such a way it is accessible to a casual audience. And what you do is that you don't build a game for this. Kind of harkens back to, like, you know, what Destiny 2 is going through, like the troubles it's going through right now. If you know, where it's not a game for the hardcore or the casual. You can have them both, but you are supposed to really, especially with an established franchise, tailor a game for the hardcore, but have the learning curve done in such a way it is accessible to someone new playing the game for the first time. And the idea being is that you bring a casual into a video game, have it accessible, have them play it, and if it's done right, and if the narrative is interesting and it's fleshed out enough so they can understand it, the casual will become the hardcore. And like that is possible. I mean, like it's happened to millions of people on The Witcher 3. I mean, there's countless people out there who played Witcher 3. Was the first Witcher game they played. It's the first, third, and final chapter of the Witcher trilogy, and millions went in it for the first time having no idea of the story and the lore from the previous games. Yeah. But because because the gameplay is fun, the characters are well written, the main narrative of the Wild Hunt Witcher 3 is so interesting. It captures the imaginations of those casual players, and then slowly but surely they start creeping. They start reading the extra lore in all the books that you can read in the lore. And next thing you know, I find myself being a hardcore Witcher fan. I'm reading up on botchlings and fiends and all these monsters, the crones and all these monsters and all this deep lore in that universe. I've gone and bought the books. I never read and like I went and read the books and fell in love with them. Yeah. And that's what the Assassin's Creed franchise needs. It needs to have a hardcore narrative deep within it, but still accessible for the hardcore fans, where they don't have to spend hours digging through bits and bobs and character model animations in the world. Yeah. You can, but have it casual, have the arc casual enough for people to become hardcore players. You know. Yeah. It's a tried and tested formula with so many video game franchises, and to be honest, because Assassin's Creed itself is such a beast in terms of the world that it's built so far over 10 years, I can understand why Ubisoft would be scared or nervous about trying to do something like that. But at the end of the day, like if the next game is as good as Origins, I mean, Origins is a good game, and if the next game is as good as Origins, but the narrative and the lore is as deep as the Ezio trilogy, you'll be fine. Like the community will be fine. New people will buy the game because of the faith and that's been built up with Origins. Casuals will go buy that game, and if they've played Origins or not, slowly but surely, if it's done right, they will become you and me. They will become the hardcore player base, and you know, like that's my opinion on it. People might agree with me, but
I'd love to see that someday. I don't expect it to happen in the near future, but I'd love to see that.
Well, that's what happens with content creators, like Assassin's Creed content creators. Like you go back to the old school days when Luma used to do YouTube videos, when Andy Escalblades, you know, used to do videos, you know, like they were the starters, they were the originals. But then over time, more people started playing the games. They got invested in the lore. So now you've got yourselves, you've got Cole, you've got Brett. Like these current content creators had to have come from somewhere. Like they didn't just that they themselves were casuals at some point, and they got invested in this world. Around Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Revelations, and 3. You know. And they've become the hardcore. That they've become the lore masters, you know. So look at your own community right now, like Ubisoft. Look at your own community. Look at the content creators. Look at the people that have still stuck around with the franchise, and look and consider at what point did they come into the franchise? At what point did Cole come into the franchise as a gamer and then decide to become a content creator? The same with Brett, the same with yourselves, the same with White Room and all these other content creators. Where did they come into the franchise? Because they were once casuals and now they're hardcores, so that it's possible.
That's a nice perspective, and it's something that you see while living in the community, that it changes. Like the content creators are not always the same, and through the years they change. And the content creators usually are hardcore fans because they invest their time in knowing
everything. But they started off at some point they were casual. At some point they were noobs.
Yeah,
we were all lore noobs and Assassin's Creed noobs at some point. We were all noobs, we were all naive, we were all casuals, and we've become the hardcore. So it's not impossible to turn a casual into a hardcore. It's been done countless times. So yeah, food for thought as we go into over the next year or two, whenever the next Assassin's Creed game will be rolling around. It is possible. So don't give your audience, give the Assassin's Creed fans, hardcore or casual, a lot more credit, because if they're people like Marco here are able to keep up with every turn, every change, every twist, every detail of the narrative. So yeah, it is possible for people to keep up with the narrative of Assassin's Creed, no matter how mind-boggling or mental or insane or confusing it is. We're smart at the end of the day. But yeah, there we go.
And that was it for today's episode. Guys, I thank you so much for following us through the entire episode. We've talked about the entire Origins experience and what it meant for us as fans. Thank you, Wayne, for being part of this podcast, even if we don't have regular episodes, but it's still how can I say, it's a work of passion,
Oh yeah, but we come back and we do an episode when there's something worth talking about, and the entire Assassin's Creed Origins experience, as well as the current state of the narrative and the lore and the community, it's all worth talking about.
Yeah.
It's passion. We love you all.
Thank you so much for following us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Peace.